Hey guys, good morning. Sorry, I'm a little late. I'm training my dog right now, and so my dog training sessions are on Friday mornings. That's why I have to push my lives a little bit. I'm sorry that the light is so weird. It's just last time I went live, it's been too hot and I'm facing a window, and so my phone got so hot that it just shut off. So I'm hoping that this kind of helps it from doing that. I'm gonna keep checking it throughout to make sure that there's no doesn't get too hot and shut down, because I want to save these lives. Hey girl, you guys are so funny. Hey pretty lady. I'm I no longer get ready for these lives. I feel bad, but you guys are you guys don't care. So I have so many questions that were submitted. So I'm going to start going through those questions. And then if you guys have questions that come up, if they come into the chat box, I'll start answering questions from both ends. Okay. So I'm going to try to get through all the live questions. And then whenever there's no live questions coming in, I'll try to get through the questions that were pre-submitted. Hey, Kirsten. And then I don't want to say your name wrong. Nadia, is that how I say it? I don't want to say it wrong. I love calling you guys by names by your names if I can. It's a beautiful name. You guys I love unique names. I hate butchering names. Okay, so I'm gonna bring in these questions, and if you guys, like I said, if you guys have questions, I will answer your questions as well. So, can swollen lymph nodes from sluggish lymph system cause swollen tonsils? Thank you. Yeah, so I absolutely believe this. Now, again, this is speculation on my part, because there are a lot of things in medicine or in the health and wellness world that have not been quote unquote proven, but it makes sense from a biological perspective or just physiologically, because your lymph nodes sit kind of right here, right? We have lymph nodes that sit in our face, but mostly right here, and different things can prevent them from draining. So if we have a lot of inflammation in our body, that can prevent it from draining. If we're not moving properly, if we're super toxic and our lymphatic system is backed up, absolutely, because lymph fluid is really what is going to carry the stuff that gets absorbed via the skin, right? And so lymph fluid eventually gets dumped into the intestines or into the bloodstream to be detoxified. And if things get sluggish, of course, viruses, bacteria, those are also things that can sit in the lymphatic fluid and affect our tonsils. And that's a lot of times why when we get a lot of congestion in our face, from a cold or something like that, we get a sore throat. But a sore throat and actually swollen tonsils can be caused by viral issues. So if you have recurring Epstein-Barr, keep in mind that the Staphylococcus bacteria lives in the mucosal membranes of the mouth and the throat. So there are different things that could be causing swollen tonsils, but I've seen a lot. If it's unexplained, your doctor can't really figure out why your tonsils are swollen, you don't have tonsil stones, then I would look to more detoxification, lymphatic drainage, that type of thing. Of course, in those cases, you want to make sure nothing serious is wrong, but at the same time, if you've already done that, which I'm assuming you have, then at that point it's kind of okay, what could be causing it that's going looked at by the doctor? How far down your chest are the lymph nodes? My chest constantly feels swollen and sore. Again, if you haven't already gotten this checked out by a doctor, please do. It's just important to make sure that nothing is wrong. You don't really have lymph nodes in your chest. So I'm wondering if that's muscular, excuse me, or some other issue. I wouldn't say that I've ever heard of lymph nodes causing chest swollen and soreness. I would really recommend getting that checked out if you haven't. I have PCOS. What is the diet do you recommend? What do I need more of? You guys know that I really promote just a nutrient-dense diet that really limits a lot of inflammatory foods or hard-to-digest foods. Lots of fresh fruits, little bits of dairy for protein, a variety of protein from eggs, and high-quality meats, shellfish, whitefish, making sure you're getting plenty of carbohydrates from roots and fruits as the right sources, really high-quality, healthy, saturated fats like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, ghee, and then a little bit of organ meats thrown in there for the trace minerals like grass-fed beef liver, that type of thing. Why is my body slow to heal all of a sudden? Like minor cuts and scrapes are taking weeks to heal versus days. Where are your stress hormones? Keep in mind when cortisol is high, your body's not going to like prioritize healing cuts and bruises because your body is focused in the here and now survival. So that is one of the biggest reasons why people have slow to heal wounds. Another reason is blood sugar imbalances. So elevated insulin levels, elevated blood sugar can cause wounds to be slow to heal. So those are two big reasons why. It could also be like mineral issues, protein issues, like you don't actually have the nutrients needed to make those repairs, but usually it's a hormonal issue. There is iron deficiency in my body. Need to know what your take on this is. Help. What does your doctor say to do? Like, when it comes to iron deficiency, I'm always worried about why is the absorption not happening. Everyone that has an iron deficiency should always get a full iron panel done because different markers of iron deficiency mean different things. So, your ferritin levels in comparison to your iron serum levels in comparison to your hair iron levels really does matter and will tell you a whole picture. Is it truly an iron deficiency, or is it a B12 deficiency, or is it a digestion issue that you're not absorbing iron, or is it an iron toxicity issue and the iron's in your tissues and not in your where your body needs it. So there's a lot of caveats to iron issues, and it's really important to look to the right direction. Also, do I need to go gluten-free? I am a big fan of a wheat-free diet, not necessarily gluten-free because I think a lot of times we cut gluten and we replace it with things that are gluten-free that are just as low quality. It's more about the what are you eating, what types of grains are you eating, and I think that gluten-free grains tend to be the best, and getting most of your carbohydrates from roots and fruits. Suggestion, maybe you could record your lives with another camera at the same time as a backup. I will at one point. It's just too hard for me right now to like get a whole setup going, and that's why I'm probably just gonna end up going live on YouTube instead, because Instagram's just really hard to get this going. Do you like to take a liquid probiotic, or do you focus on getting your probiotics through your foods? I'm not actually a big fan of probiotics. I think probiotics are really being overused right now. I think that like getting a little bit of probiotics here and there, or if you have some severe gut issues, actually taking strategic targeted probiotics. But at the same time, like I'm not a big fan of taking a bunch of random strains of bacteria. And most commercially produced probiotic foods are produced with lactic acid producing bacteria, which is just not going to be the best for gut health. Posterior pelvic tilt, it's painful, lack of core strength. Why is this common with PCOS? I think it has a lot to do with gut issues, and I think it has a lot to do with intestinal inflammation. I really strongly believe that women with PCOS have gut issues, and it's partially why their glucose metabolism is so poor. And I think the intestinal inflammation really does bother the core, and it can really determine how you sit, and it can determine how you move, and that can create muscle imbalances over time, and so it needs to be corrected. And partially most women have posterior pelvic tilts anyways, because they're looking at these women on Instagram sticking out their booties, having these continual like arches in their lower back, which is a horrible way. That is a great way to poop your pants by the time you're 40, because you won't be able to hold it in. So if it's very important. I think where a lot of people are sedentary, I think posterior pelvic tilt is a bigger issue in women beyond just PCOS. But I think it has a lot to do with like intestinal inflammation and even like reproductive organs being kind of inflamed. So I think it's important to really work on internal health while you're also actively working on making sure that your pelvis stays neutral, even when you're sitting at a desk, sitting down. I also think a lot of women overtrain in the sense of doing like plyometrics. So plyometrics really do cause horrible pelvic floor issues. Your pelvic floor gets very, very weak, and pelvic floor weakness is going to cause, a pelvic tilt. So it really depends, but I think posterior pelvic tilt is not just common amongst women with PCOS, it's just common amongst women, period. So I have myofascial pain and it doesn't seem to go. I also have PCOD. Is there any way I can heal both? Myofascial pain is preventing me from exercising and is lowering my blood sugar levels. Also, well, have you ever looked into myofascial release, like massage or something like a Theragun, or doing foam rolling? Those are ways that you can really release the fascia. You can find so much information on myofascial release. Yeah, there are professionals that do it. You know, like for example, I'm a personal trainer and I've taken courses in myofascial release, like continuing education courses in releasing myofascial pressure, and a lot of toxins and a lot of actual emotional pain can be stored in the fascia and can be stored in those myofascial knots, we can call them, or like messed up fascia. So Theraguns are a really good option. Foam rolling daily, just committing to it every single day, is a really good option. It hurts. Myofascial release is not fun, but if you want to really start moving that fascia and really start working through the releases that need to happen, I would just recommend like working on a few different body parts every day. Also, fascia blasters are a great way to work through fascia pain. So those are some things that I would look into. What's my preferred deodorant? My preferred deodorant is, I use the crystal salt deodorant. I just like that it's neutral, but a lot of people like tell me like, oh, you should use this or you should use this. I've heard Little Seed Farm works really good. I've used Fatco in the past. I'm not like a huge fan of it, but Stank Stop works pretty good. Primally Pure also works pretty good, I've heard. I am not down to spend like $18 on deodorant. I just cannot do it. Like, I just refuse. But a lot of people say just taking a roller bottle and putting milk of magnesia in it works really, really well. Is honey good for PCOS? Because I would love to make a natural medicament. Yeah, honey is great for most people. But yeah, I don't know what medicament means. My poop sucks. I'm getting 25 grams of fiber. Drink lots of water. Still constipated. Help. Yeah, because fiber doesn't heal constipation. This is like where a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like fiber is the end all be all. And I'm like, haha, no. So remember that the migrating motor complex and peristalsis are what really move food through the gut. If transit time is really, really slow, you have to look to your thyroid and your metabolism. Are you eating enough and eating frequently enough to fuel a healthy body that wants to move food through the intestines quick enough? If the answer to that question is no, that's the first step. You want to be eating protein, carb, and fat every 2 to 3 hours, and you want to be eating enough calories, and you want to be eating the right types of calories. The second thing is, maybe the fiber you're eating is not working for you. Not all fiber is created equal, and there are different types of fibers. I like gentle fibers from roots and fruits, sometimes tying in some other fibers like Triphala is a really good one, or a prebiotic like Just Thrive's prebiotic. But not all fibers are created equal. Keep in mind that the fiber from like beans, legumes, grains, and nuts are going to usually stop you up, especially if you have bacterial overgrowth. Also, raw vegetables are really awful fiber for people with gut issues, and cooked vegetables are where it's at when it comes to getting the gut moving at a good pace. If I lower my testosterone, will my period come back? Not always. Period loss can sometimes happen from not eating enough, not eating the right things. You know, are you vegan? Are you vegetarian? A lot of times a meat-free diet will do that to you. Are you over-exercising? Are you eating enough calories? There are other caveats to period loss besides just imbalanced hormones, and those things will drive stress in the body. So it's really figuring out, are you at too low of a body fat percentage? Is your nutrition working for you? Are you eating enough calories? Are you eating enough of certain macros? A lot of women are on too low protein of diets, which stresses out the thyroid, which in turn will shut off sex hormone production. So there's a lot of caveats, but it's not just about lowering testosterone. It's also about what's going on with your body. Why is testosterone high in the first place? Because a lot of times it's high because of stress. Hi Jess, what's your opinion on couscous and polenta? Also wanted to ask about figs. They are all over my city. Haha, are they a good choice for fruit? Anything that is in season and you can get that's local and fresh and juicy, of course, is wonderful for you. Figs are delicious, and if you can get them like local and fresh, enjoy them. When it comes to couscous and polenta, just keep in mind that they're usually wheat-based dishes. And of course, it's one of those things where, you never want to have fear of food, but a lot of people don't do well on wheat, especially processed wheat that's hybridized. So keep in mind that the only ancient heirloom wheat that exists is called einkorn. And everything else has been changed into not just wheat, it's a wheat mixed with a grass. You're not a cow. Humans cannot digest grass. And so when they started hybridizing wheat to splice it with grass to make it more resilient to pesticides and to make it more resilient to famine, they also created this kind of Franken wheat. And Franken wheat doesn't do good for our guts and our digestion. It really binds to trypsin. It's a trypsin inhibitor, and it keeps us from being able to digest and absorb the nutrients from all of our other food. And so I'm not a big fan of wheat based foods unless they're from heirloom grains. And usually couscous and polenta are just made from wheat. Is vegan plant-based diet good for healing PCOS and balanced hormone? No. Can I still avail fully nourished? Is there any waiting? Yeah, fully nourished is always available. It's available long-term. You can purchase it at any time. If you consume seeds like chia, do you soak them first? I don't really consume seeds very often. Seeds, in my opinion, are not edible for human beings unless you are in a famine. So yes, it's better to soak them first, but if it's a choice between soaking them and just not eating them, I just wouldn't eat them. There's no nutritional benefit whatsoever. If anything, they're gonna bind to they're full of anti-nutrients, and they're gonna bind to things. Just because everyone is touting something as a health food, you gotta take a step back and look at your biology. Look at what your ancestors have adapted to eating over time. The human body does not want to have to work so hard to work through anti-nutrients and work through all these compounds and phytic acid to get the nutrients it needs. Just because somebody says there's this amount of protein in a chia seed, is your body actually able to get it out of that chia seed? And is that chia seed actually absorbing all of your nutrients in the process? Most likely. You have to keep in mind, what is the function of a seed? The function of a seed is to grow into an adult plant, and the goal is for it to go through a mammal completely undigested so that it could be pooped out on the other side and still plant and grow into a plant in the soil. And so if you keep that in mind, and you keep in mind that a seed has to exist through the winter months and pull as many nutrients and water towards itself as possible, do you want that to be doing that in your gut? No, you don't want seeds to be absorbing all your nutrients and trying to grow in your gut. We're trying to make it through your gut to the other side. I'm not a big fan of seeds for all of those reasons, and I don't really think they provide many nutrients to you. And I find that most women that don't eat seeds or limit them do a lot better than women that eat a bunch of seeds. How about being your client? Will there be one-on-one sessions in Fully Nourished? No. So Fully Nourished is a DIY walkthrough program. My one-on-one clients get a different type of service. They get access to me 24/7 via email, and they are, I personally guide them through what's going on with their health. A lot of times my one-on-one clients need a lot more one-on-one help. They have a lot more difficult health issues that aren't going to be resolved or are only partially resolved with what's in Fully Nourished. I always use Fully Nourished as a foundation, so even with my one-on-one clients, they will still be using exactly what I put in Fully Nourished, but we would be building upon that. Also, I'm still a uni student and I want to get trained in what you do. I'm so inspired. I study psychology and want to gain the wisdom you have so bad. Love you, girl. Oh, I appreciate it. Well, that is where, passion comes in. So I didn't get trained in what I do necessarily. I got the training I needed to help people, but I spend about 15 to 20 hours a week researching health, and I never stop learning about the body. I never stop, investing in continuing education. I'm always looking to grow and change and expand my mind, and I'm always very curious, and I always don't believe what I read. So that's the biggest thing, is stop believing what you see on Instagram, stop believing what you read, look beyond, look deeper, and if something doesn't make sense to you, maybe it doesn't make sense at all. And so it doesn't matter if it's a research study, it doesn't matter what it is, look deeper and always follow, what your gut says. What is your opinion on seed cycling? I would never do it just because it's so annoying to me. Like, why? Like, and then I don't really believe in the health of seeds at all. I think seeds are really overhyped, in my opinion. There are a lot of people's like touting how like powerful seeds are, and I'm like, okay, why don't we look back 100 years and see if anyone was eating seeds? No, probably not. I asked about honey because my insulin resistance was a bit higher than it was supposed to be. You're amazing, and I really respect what you do. Oh, I appreciate it. You know, a little bit of honey here and there is not going to really hurt you at all. It's usually a problem if insulin resistance is high. It's usually a problem with blood sugar imbalance. It's a problem with inflammation stemming from the gut. Toxins. Very rarely is sugar the driving factor in insulin resistance. My mom is on birth control pills for the past 4 years. She's 50. I would love to advise her to go off the pill before menopause. When is the good time for that to do? Is there any preparation for that? I would look into 2 books, The Period Repair Manual by Dr. Lara Brighton and Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. What is it if your hormone levels are normal but you have symptoms of imbalances? Well, what hormones are you getting tested? What time of the month were you testing them? And what are your symptoms? Did they look deep enough? Did they look into the right hormones? There's a lot of questions when it comes to imbalances, and sometimes they don't show up on a hormonal blood test, unfortunately. You have to dig deeper. That's why I use functional lab testing and comb through people's symptoms and health history. So I'm looking at what are their habits, what's maybe working against them, what's working for them, what needs to change, that type of thing. You always go by symptoms over labs because symptoms, your body is what talks. What do you recommend for lowering testosterone naturally? I talk about this in my highlight story labeled hirsutism, but high testosterone is usually high due to stress, due to blood sugar imbalances, due to insulin issues, which is going to stem from blood sugar imbalances, lack of sleep, not eating very well, lots of inflammation in the body. So it's very important to first make sure you're eating frequently, protein, carb, and fat every 2 to 3 hours. Make sure you're lowering inflammation. Make sure that you are working very hard to take care of your body. Sleep, exercise, getting enough sunlight, just the basics. And then once you are doing that consistently, see what happens to your testosterone levels. If you're still seeing high testosterone, even though you're eating healthy and you're taking care of yourself, then at that point, understand that, vitamin K2 deficiency can cause high testosterone. Different nutrient imbalances can cause high testosterone. Estrogen issues, liver issues, gut issues can cause high testosterone. So there's a lot of reasons, and you kind of need to get to the bottom of what's driving yours. But the basics are what matters first. Get blood sugar balanced. Make sure you're eating a healthful diet, nutrient dense. You're not restricting. You're not over exercising. You're sleeping. You're getting sunlight. The foundational things, and then you can dig deeper. What do you think about castor oil packs? How often, if you think it's helpful? Yeah, I love castor oil packs. Sometimes if you have gut issues, doing them daily can be helpful, but at least like once a week can be really, really beneficial, especially the week before your period. How can I lower my testosterone and DHEA sulfate naturally to regulate ovulation? Like I said, you've really got to dig deep into what could be driving stress in the body. So are you eating frequently? What are you eating? How many calories are you eating? Are you eating enough protein? Are you under exercising, over exercising? Are you taking care of yourself? Those are the first things that need to happen. And then sometimes then you can dig deeper as to why it could be toxins, heavy metals, nutrient deficiencies, gut issues, that type of thing. But the basics need to happen first. How to get rid of post-nasal drip? Get to the root of your gut issues. Sometimes like a antibacterial nasal spray can really help, like grapefruit seed extract or colloidal silver, but a lot of times it has to do with fungus in the gut or bacteria in the gut getting into the sinuses and the throat and then re-dripping back into the gut. My friend has thyroid problems and I have PCOS. Can we eat exactly the same things? Yes, usually PCOS is driven by low metabolism, which is in part driven by like a subclinical thyroid issue. So yes, usually you would eat very similar things. Do you think you can heal hirsutism fully? I wouldn't say the word heal. It's more just like, why is my skin and my hair like overgrowing hair, and yes, I do believe you can get to the bottom of those symptoms. It's usually a hormonal imbalance, it's usually a blood sugar imbalance, low progesterone, high estrogen, high testosterone, so all those need to be addressed. But yes, usually you can slow it down, and you can eventually stop it if you're doing the right thing and you're getting to the root of the imbalance. What to do for a high LH-FSH ratio, where's your estrogen levels, and how is your body detoxifying estrogen? A Dutch test comes in a lot of handy at this point, because a lot of times if you have elevated estrogen or you're not detoxifying estrogen well, what will happen is you will continue to see a high LH to FSH ratio. So you want to make sure detoxification is good, progesterone levels are up, stress is low, cortisol is low, adrenaline is low, making sure you're balancing your blood sugar, make sure you're taking care of yourself, sunlight, sleep, exercise, lowering stress, that type of thing. Usually that's enough. But experiencing headaches after intense exercise, tips, don't do it. You're a lot of times elevated estrogen or low blood sugar is going to be the cause of headaches, and so that shows that exercise is most likely not working for you very well. What's a good budget water filter? You mentioned a jug before, I think. Yeah, so there's one called the Aqua Gear pitcher. It's not like budget necessarily, but it's going to be cheaper than like a Berkey or a reverse osmosis system. I think it runs you like $60, but it's not just like a Brita, which just filters for taste. It also filters for, gets contaminants out. So yeah, it's called the Aqua Gear pitcher. I cannot get Extrema in the EU. What would be your second choice of cookware after ceramic? I would look into like clay, glass. I would look into, each stainless steel brand is going to be a little different, but it kind of depends on what you're looking for. And I think like a La Creuset is not the worst thing. It's still a little toxic, but it's not as toxic as like a non-stick. Is it possible my oestrogen was low in my blood test and know that my body is healing, it's moving, and I'm getting symptoms? Well, it just really depends on where progesterone levels are at. Keep in mind that the bloodstream is the highway for hormones, but hormones don't get stored there. So it just really depends on what's going on with your hormones. That's why I like a Dutch test, because it just tells you so much more than a blood test, just because sometimes blood tests are not an accurate picture of what's stored in the tissues or what's being detoxified. But yeah, it's hard to know. How long do you think it's going to fully heal your hormones? It just depends on what's going on. Sometimes it can take a couple months, sometimes it can take a couple years, and it's all about what the person that has imbalanced hormones is willing to do. For example, if you're working a very stressful job that is full of a ton of toxic people, until you figure out what you can do that's not that job, sometimes until you quit that job, your hormones are imbalanced. You can do everything else, right? Like you can get your food on point, and you can get your sleep on point, and you can get everything else on point, but if your stress is not on point, sometimes your hormones won't heal. Or I've seen like women, for example, that are in a really toxic relationship, their husband abuses them, or like borderline makes them feel like crap about themselves. At that point, it's kind of like they're in fight or flight all the time, right? And there's no amount of food or supplements or sleep that's going to fix an issue that is putting you into fight or flight day after day. So that's just a long way of saying it really depends on where the hormones are and what the individual situation is, what's driving those hormone imbalances. Is frequent dizziness a symptom of imbalanced blood sugar levels? Yeah, usually. I'm not saying like that is the case. It could be other things. There's plenty of other things that can cause that, but usually if you're dizzy all the time, like how long has it been since you last ate, and what are you eating? Are you eating protein, carb, and fat? PCOS and low blood sugar, how? The thing is, you guys, all the misinformation going on about PCOS just really makes me angry, because PCOS is a metabolic disorder. It's not qualified by high or low blood sugar. It's the fact that your blood sugar is dysregulated, period. And there's no need to cut carbohydrates when you have PCOS. You have to eat them properly in conjunction with protein and fat, and you have to eat them frequently to keep blood sugar stable. most women have low blood sugar at some point of their day. They have high and low, because what's happening is this, not this, this. Constantly. And every time this happens, every time your body drops into that low, your body has to secrete cortisol to get it high if you're not going to actually consume something. So in PCOS, keep in mind, it's a metabolic disorder. It's a blood sugar dysregulation. It has nothing to do with high blood sugar or low blood sugar, and everything to do with the fact that blood sugar is dysregulated. And all these people that are saying fasting and less meals, it's not going to work. You've got to eat frequently, every 2 to 3 hours. You have to eat protein, carb, and fat. You've got to get inflammation down, and you've got to get stress down. That's the only way that we can start seeing true healing. My hairs keep falling out. What's the main source, and how can I stop it? Well, that's, it's hard to say. It could be a thyroid issue. It can be low progesterone. It could be high estrogen. It could be high testosterone. It could be blood sugar imbalances, high cortisol. It's usually related to stress. How much are you eating? Are you under eating? Are you eating protein, carb, and fat every 2 to 3 hours? Are you sleeping? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating enough calories? Where's your stress levels at? Hair is, keep in mind that your hair follicles are like little mini organs, and they have a high need for nutrients, high need for minerals, and if your gut's dysfunctional, you're not absorbing nutrients properly, there could be a problem. If your liver's toxic or backed up or sluggish, that could be a problem. But it's mostly the fact that women just aren't eating enough, and they aren't eating frequently, and they aren't eating the right things. I was told by my doctor yesterday that with my liver disease, I shouldn't ever get pregnant because it's too high risk. I'm thinking about freezing my eggs for a surrogate. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't really have any thoughts on that. I think it's kind of one of those things where should take it in strides. I feel like when doctors say things like that, it just really ends up stressing the patient out, and it really ends up like hurting them in a sense, because it becomes like a stress and a worry. But I don't think there's anything wrong with freezing your eggs or for a surrogate. I just think it's like just don't let that like make you feel stressed or less than, because I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering in that sense. But yeah, I think like it's good to be aware of. If it's going to be high risk, then of course listen to that advice. And but I don't really have any thoughts on freezing your egg. If you feel like it's the right thing to do, then it's the right thing to do. Do you recommend counting macros and calories? Not really like intensely, but it can be helpful in certain cases, especially if women don't really understand how much they're eating, don't really understand what a protein is, what a carb is, what a fat is. It can be really empowering to know what a certain amount of food looks like, because a lot of women are under eating. They're not overeating, they're under eating. And they're specifically under eating protein or under eating carbohydrates. So sometimes it can be helpful, but it doesn't need to happen every single day obsessively, and you should just look at it as loosely staying in those ranges. It's not like you need to hit those numbers every single day. Put on birth control age 12 when period started until age 20, and then diagnosed with PCOS. Bottom low progesterone since. Does this mean my body never learned how to ovulate? Most likely. I've seen it a lot in women that get put on birth control at such a young age. Usually you're not ovulating regularly at a young age anyways, which is why you get issues, like period issues and things. But yeah, it could mean that the body never learned how to ovulate. That happened to me. I was put on birth control at 15, and so I'm stuck on bioidentical progesterone until further notice. But that's just my own personal story. Most women don't have to be stuck on bioidenticals, like bioidentical progesterone forever, and I don't know if I'm going to have to be stuck on it forever, but I know as of now, my body has a very hard time making enough progesterone. What do you think of those who have fatty liver doing FN? I am neutral on it. If your doctor recommends you stay away from fructose, stay away from fructose. But I've already talked about multiple times where, high fructose corn syrup can cause fatty liver disease, but that's not pure fructose. High fructose corn syrup and fructose from fruit are two very different things. They're almost separate issues. And so for people to say that fructose causes fatty liver and they're using high fructose corn syrup to show that, it means nothing to me, because show me that fruit juice causes high fatty liver disease and then I'll have a problem with it. But I think it's really up to you and what you think is right for you if you have fatty liver, and of course listen to your doctor. Sorry, it cut me off. My question is, the hormones they shoot you up for that process, can I recover? It depends. It really just depends on where you're at in like your healing journey, where you're, to me, like those hormones can be really harsh on the liver. And so it's like interesting to me that, you know, with a liver issue like that, they're pushing it. Of course, it's just a one-time thing. So usually the body recovers, but it's kind of like, really look into what hormones they shoot you up with, because I'm not exactly sure. It's different for every doctor, different for every procedure. I've seen different ones. I've seen people that get shot up with like FDA black boxed hormones and I'm like, why? You know, like you're getting this procedure done because you have such bad issues, and it's kind of like, you know, it defeats the point of my purpose, but it really just depends what they're shooting you up with. PCOS and intermittent fasting just gonna cause more issues. Running through grass-fed butter like crazy since cooking with saturated fats. LOL, is there a more sustainable way? Does Costco sell grass-fed butter in bulk? Yes, I get Kerrygold in packs of 4 at Costco. What kind of diet do you recommend? I don't recommend a diet, you guys. You guys know that have been around for a while. Fully Nourished is my program where I teach you how to eat nutrient-dense nutrition that's anti-inflammatory and supportive to your hormones, gets your stress low, get your blood sugar balanced, support your thyroid, get your nutrients up. Those are going to be the biggest things for your hormones. Do you know any good brand for blue light blocking glasses? I use Uvex, but they're not cute. So they work really well, but they're definitely not like stylish. How would you recommend going about using tanning beds for red light mood improvement? I don't really recommend tanning beds necessarily. I think it's like one of those things where you really have to choose for yourself. I personally will use them like for 7 to 10 minutes a couple times a week, especially in the winter. But it just really depends on how much sunlight I'm getting during the day. But yeah, I don't really have like a science to it. It's just like I need some type of light exposure, some type of vitamin D production, and in the winter sometimes it can be hard to get that. So I'll just do it when I feel like I need it. Thanks. If your body never learned to ovulate, how do you know when to start progesterone cream, especially with long cycles? I feel like I misused progesterone cream at the wrong time in the past. You know, they always say like recommend from 14 to 28. So you're trying to get your body on that cycle from 14 to 28. So some people will start at 14 and work all the way up until they start their next period, but the goal is to shorten the cycle. So, but yeah, I don't really recommend how to use it. Usually you should work with, if you have such irregular cycles and you've had a poor experience in the past, then at that point you really want to work with a doctor who is very educated in bioidentical progesterones. Do you mind listing some estrogenic health foods that should be avoided? I heard strawberries are estrogenic. Hell no, I can't get those up. No, I think people just obsess too much. The biggest one that is my problem is going to be flaxseed and pumpkin seeds. And then like seeds in general are pretty estrogenic. PUFAs, so polyunsaturated fats, tend to be really estrogenic. I'm trying to think of what else that like you would want to, like soy, obviously, like tofu and tempeh and like edamame. Like why would, I don't even understand why people eat that stuff. Like it's just disgusting to me. But I guess some people like it. And then legumes and grains are very estrogenic. They're seeds. Anything that's going to keep in mind that estrogen is a hormone of growth. So what needs to rapidly grow? Seeds, right? So grains, legumes, nuts, those are all baby plants that are going to rapidly grow. And so they tend to be a little bit more estrogenic or phytoestrogenic. So just think of it that way. But yeah, those are going to probably be the biggest ones. Legumes, grains, nuts, seeds, and soy. Are people with PCOS more prone to miscarriages? They are if they have low progesterone. Keep in mind that thyroid issues and progesterone normally drive miscarriages. And so as long as you make sure your progesterone levels are appropriate and the thyroid is good, with a full thyroid panel that includes free T3 and reverse T3, usually not as prone to miscarriages. Best practical tips to have a good relationship with food and focus on nutrient-dense foods and yet eat exercise to lose weight. Doc is still recommending for heart health after preeclampsia. Yeah, practical way is get enough protein. You can still track, like use MyFitnessPal. There's just no need to like overly restrict. The biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to lose weight is they go from eating like 2,000 calories of whatever they want every day to 1,200 calories, and they're restricting really hard. A lot of times that's not necessary. Your goal is to slowly decrease until you're starting to see steady weight loss. A lot of times that doesn't need to go very low, and macronutrient manipulation is usually a bigger thing. So for example, making sure you're getting plenty of protein, maybe like 35 to 40% of your protein, of your calories from protein is important. Also making sure you're getting carbohydrates from the right sources. Roots and fruits are going to be much more weight loss promoting than like grains, like gluten-free bread and sourdough and things like that. Now, of course, enjoy those things in moderation and they can still kind of fit into your macronutrients, but more focus on roots and fruits. And then just fats. Don't go too hardcore on the fat. So 25 to 30% of your calories should come from fat, no more than that. Really just making sure you're getting enough protein is a big one. And then, yeah, just kind of like you want to track out what you're doing, right? Like track, see where you're at, and then you can sometimes lower it just a little bit. But I first recommend getting macronutrients on point, because sometimes just getting your macronutrient ratios good and making sure you're eating every 2 to 3 hours is enough to really start to fuel weight loss. Like that's just enough. And then if weight loss isn't coming, then, you know, sometimes look at the gut. If the gut and digestion is really bad or detoxification is poor, those are things that can really prevent weight loss, and no amount of cutting calories is going to fix that issue. You might like lose a little bit of weight, but it might feel like a really like an uphill battle. So I really like to start with macronutrient manipulation, cutting calories a little if it's necessary. Like you don't want to be consuming way more. The way that you know that is that you're actively gaining weight. And then eat very frequently, every 2 to 3 hours. Set your timer. Make sure you're having a little meal that has protein, carb, and fat every 2 to 3 hours. Also, how much collagen is too much collagen? Is there such a thing? Usually no. Some people do get like headaches from it or breakouts from it, if they didn't already have breakouts. If they're having like too much, I usually say like put a kibosh at like the 6 tablespoon mark. Does your lymph system run down your esophagus or chest? I often have difficulty breathing, and I've had x-rays of my heart and lungs. Only things doctors can see is a slow lymph system. Yeah, of course, it can slow down a lot of different things. And I would look into what's going on in the gut, because strep is a bacteria that can live in all the mucosal membranes. And if you have gut bacteria overgrowth or a lot of strep in the body, it can weigh down the esophagus, the lungs. Any type of mucosal membrane can have strep in it. So yeah, but if the lymph system is slow, you want to look into rebounding, lymphatic drainage massage, myofascial release, what else? Rebounding, that type of thing. Would hair fall out due to histamines? Inflammation, yes. Keep in mind histamines is a symptom of a problem, meaning that there's bacterial imbalance, there's lots of inflammation in the body. But yeah, the hair can fall out from a lack of absorption of nutrients, from gut issues, or from inflammation, but not from, I wouldn't say like histamines directly cause hair fall. What is a good first step in healing Candida? I know it needs to be a slow process. My NP will be helping me through it in a couple of weeks, but I want to start ASAP. The first step is start getting your transit time up. So test your transit time with something dark like chlorophyll, beets, activated charcoal. How fast is food moving through your gut? Your goal is to get it to less than 24 hours. If things are moving slow, no amount of gut healing or Candida healing is going to fix if your food is just sitting there rotting. The second thing I want you guys to do is next time somebody tells you to go on a Candida diet that has a bunch of green vegetables, I want you to do an experiment. I want you to take a carrot and a sweet potato and put it in put a little moisture in there, and then put it in a Ziploc bag. And then I want you to take a head of lettuce, make sure there's a little moisture in that bag, and zip it tight, low oxygen environments. And I want you to sit it out in the sun or in a warm area for about 3 days. And I want you to watch what happens to those vegetables. And you're gonna see at the end of the 3 days, that lettuce has rotted and fermented and gotten all nasty. Keep in mind that your body is 98.6 degrees. Your gut is a bacteria and fungus infested, mucousy, wet place. What are you putting in there and what's happening to it with the bacteria and the fungus? I promise you, you do not want to be putting a bunch of raw vegetables in your gut when you have gut issues. So biggest thing, stop eating a bunch of raw vegetables, stop eating a bunch of leafy greens unless they're really, really well cooked. Stay away from the cruciferous vegetables and eat roots and fruits, and make sure transit time is quick, because if transit time is 48, 72 hours, things are just sitting there rotting, and that's going to cause Candida overgrowth regardless of how many herbs you take, what you do. You've got to get transit time up. Also, do you ever recommend pasta if it's homemade fresh pasta, or it's the same because of wheat? Also, thoughts about gnocchi. Not a fan of wheat, guys. It doesn't matter what it is, just not a big fan of it unless it's made from einkorn heirloom wheat. Hi Jessica, I've had umbilical hernia repair 2 times and it's back. Is this nutrient deficiency or hormonal issue? I'm tired of this coming back and I hate having a mesh. Thoughts, please. A lot of times it has to do with intestinal inflammation. The intestines are actually so inflamed that it's pushing out. There's a hernia because of it. Another thing that can actually cause it is thyroid issues. So there are a lot of people that have intestinal inflammation. It's actually causing hernial problems. Thyroid issues can cause hernial problems, or a weak core, so diastasis recti. You have an ab separation going on, and so it's causing hernia. So if you haven't looked into DR, that's another thing to look into. Can you please explain the dangers and benefits between cooking oils, MUFAs versus PUFAs? Keep in mind, guys, that plant oils are not resilient to heat, light. They oxidize very quickly. MUFAs and PUFAs shouldn't be really cooked with. Saturated fats have hydrogen-carbon bonds that are already hydrogenated, so they are very resilient to heat and light. Keep in mind, mammals are warm, right? 100-degree bodies, 98.6-degree bodies. Their fats are meant for heat. A lot of tropical oils are saturated fats. Why? Because they grow in hot, wet areas. You're a hot, wet area. Your body's 98.6 degrees. Plants like seeds, for example, avocados. Some avocados are grown in warmer climates, and that's why they can handle a little higher heat. But again, their oils can oxidize pretty quickly. Seeds, they drop in the autumn. They last the winter season. They sprout in the spring. They never have to endure the summer months. So if you just look at it from a biological perspective, plants are not as resilient to heat as saturated fats. Why? Simply because saturated fats are created in hot environments. Best natural help for chronic congestion in the throat and the sinuses. I really like grapefruit seed extract, like nasal spray. But I also like, if you type in on Google Dave Asprey sinus rinse, he has like a good sinus rinse that's made from like xylitol and iodine, which can help kind of clear what's going on. But really, long term, you want to find out what's actually going on in the gut, because a lot of times it's stemming from like bacteria and fungus, and it just kind of gets back up into those passages. Thank you so much. I've already taken my advice and I've been for a massage and acupuncture to help my lymph flow. Woo-woo! That's so good. Yeah, it can take a while to get the lymphatic system moving, and you kind of want to, like, intermittently, while you're getting it worked on by somebody, you also want to work on it actively, like at home, with just like something like a body brush or that type of thing. You just gave the most metal description of your stomach I've ever heard. LMAO. Where did you get your nutrition education? From a few different places, but most of my education, honestly, you guys, comes from my own personal research. I say this all the time. Like, I, of course, received the certifications I need. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, a certified nutritionist consultant, a certified personal trainer, and a holistic health coach. But those are just kind of the foundation for me. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on continuing education. I have spent thousands of hours of personal research. I research probably like 15 to 20 hours a week just because I like it and just because I'm always like wanting to learn. So most of my education has just come from personal research. on top of like what I received in my schooling. Okay, so before my period, I retain a lot of water in my face, thighs, and stomach. Why and what to do? Look into your progesterone levels. So 5 to 7 days after you ovulate, usually around day 14, you want to get your progesterone tested. If it's below 8 nanograms per deciliter, it's probably low. And progesterone is a diuretic, so if you're not making enough, then you're gonna feel swollen before your period. What do you know or think about the migraine diet? I haven't heard of it, but I think that if you have migraines, you should always be very concerned with blood sugar balance. Usually people that have migraines have chronically low blood sugar hypoglycemia. And so what they need to do is just eat a bunch of sugar while they have a migraine, and they usually feel fine for a little while. That's why caffeine works. Then they need to focus long-term on blood sugar balance. If that doesn't help, then a lot of times migraines are due to elevated estrogen. So you've got to look at estrogen detoxification. You've got to look at progesterone levels. What's actually affecting your estrogen levels? But I've never heard of the migraine diet, but it sounds weird. Just kidding. If it works, it works. Pantry staples for hormone health. Coconut oil for sure. Pastured eggs. What else? Fruit. Lots of fresh fruit that's seasonal. Lots of sweet potatoes, yams, carrots, root vegetables, and what else? I like shellfish, like shrimp and scallops, and then collagen. Grass-fed collagen. Your review of red light therapy device you made. Yeah, I really like it. Honestly, guys, I haven't used it really that much this month. I just need to pop it on, and I haven't done it. But yeah, when I'm using it, it feels really good. It makes me feel a lot more mentally clear, and it truly does help with hair growth when you direct it at the scalp. Insulin, PCOS management when you have pancreas gallbladder issues, hereditary, long-term. Get those pancreas and gallbladder issues figured out. So a lot of times if they're hereditary, I actually have gallbladder issues that run in the family. My great-grandma actually died of gallbladder complications. And keep in mind that pancreatic and gallbladder issues are 9 times out of 10 driven by gluten sensitivity or celiac disease. So it's very important to get wheat out of the diet if you don't already have it out already. Second thing is take the stress off via pancreatic enzymes. Sometimes the pancreas is just super burdened, and so ask your doctor about taking pancreatic enzymes. Ask if they would allow that, or that would be okay. Gallbladder issues, usually castor oil packs are helpful. Again, ask your doctor before doing them. And working on actual manual gallbladder massage and working that gallbladder. Also, and this is not advice or recommendations, this is just like look into it for yourself, do your own research, but have you ever heard of the amazing liver and gallbladder flush? Ask your doctor about that. You want to Google that, do your own research on it, and decide if that's something that would maybe benefit you. So there's a lot of different things out there that you can work on it, but yeah, I would work on the pancreas and gallbladder issues because those are going to affect digestion and detoxification of estrogen, which is going to make insulin resistance and polycystic ovarian syndrome so much worse. Will this be on YouTube? God, cross your fingers, I hope so. I'm gonna try to end it early enough to where I can save it. We'll see. I'm seeing undigested food even when I'm blending and cooking my food. How do I further help my digestion? I have SIBO and hypothyroid. What are you eating? What is your stress levels like? At this point, I would, if you're eating tons of vegetables, I would really stop that. I would eat a low fiber diet for a little while and get my fiber mostly from roots and fruits that are very well cooked. Also, if you're eating lots of meat, make sure it's cooked in broth, like it's actually stewed almost. And I would really look into enzymes, broad spectrum, pancreatic enzymes, something like that, maybe hydrochloric acid. But it sounds like maybe the migrating motor complex is not working well, or there's some transit time issues. Is your hypothyroidism untreated? There's a lot of questions I have. A lot of it would be speculation at this point, but if things are moving too slow, then there could be some issues. Don't judge me. Alcohol, I like to drink a good drink a few times a week. How bad is alcohol to my metabolism? Just depends. I think a lot of people, I say a limit of 3 drinks per week, and you always do the 1-for-1 rule. So if you're drinking a drink, then you got to drink a club soda with lime and then go back and forth. So if you're going out for a night of drinks, 1-for-1. drink a club soda with lime. No one knows you don't have a vodka soda. Don't tell anyone, just drink your 1-to-1. So 1 glass of water for every 1 drink you drink. But yeah, like usually 3 drinks a week is fine for someone with a normal liver function and normal metabolism. And a good drink like takes the stress off, and if you really enjoy it, then it's fine. But then also ask yourself, when it comes to alcohol, why is it the case? Is it something you truly enjoy? A lot of women are leaning on it for de-stressing. Why do you have a life that you need to de-stress from? Evaluate. It's just about an evaluation. A lot of times, I've just worked with a lot of women, we get to the root of the alcohol problem, and it's more that it's just being leaned upon because they're stressed out, they have too much on their plate, they have a day that they need to unwind from, days that they're not enjoying. So at that point, like, just kind of ask yourself, why is that? But if it's just because you like it, then I don't think it's a problem unless you're really truly having problems that are going unresolved. You know what I mean? Like, you've done everything else and you're still not seeing progress at that point, then a lot of times the drinks are holding you back. What's the most important advice to a 25-year-old with PCOS? The most important advice is do not get caught up in fad dieting and really drown out the noise. Stop following people that associate with their PCOS or identify with their PCOS. I think it's really, really a horrible idea to identify yourself as I have PCOS. People get super involved in these Facebook groups and they get super involved in, all of these, like they follow all these PCOS pages and they really make PCOS their life and they make themselves miserable. It's really about nourishing yourself. It's about getting your blood sugar balance. It's about getting your progesterone levels up, making sure your cycles are regular, taking care of yourself, setting up habits that will last you a lifetime, because this is going to last a lifetime, right? Balancing blood sugar, eating protein, carb, and fat, getting a really good nutrient-dense diet, setting up good habits of sleeping well and exercising daily and taking care of yourself. And usually PCOS symptoms start to go away as you begin to take care of yourself in the right ways, and you don't have to stress so much about having PCOS as much as you just focus on taking care of yourself because you deserve to be taken care of. That's really it. It's not about taking care of your body because you have PCOS. PCOS is just a wake-up call that you needed to take care of your body in the first place. You know what I mean? Please recommend a good iron supplement that won't make me constipated. I can't, because iron makes you constipated. Iron feeds bacteria, and bacteria will make you constipated. Where can I begin to start getting a healthier gut? The biggest thing is to chew your food well, stop being stressed while you eat frequently, eat in a mindful way, so stop scarfing down your food. Don't eat a bunch of wheat. Make sure you're eating lots of roots and fruits and saturated fats like coconut oil and grass-fed butter. Good healthy meats, eggs, collagen, gelatin, gelatinous foods. But gelatin and collagen are going to be your best friend. Bone broth will be your best friend. Staying away from too many grains and wheat-based products will really help. And that's kind of like the beginning tips. Chew well, stay away from wheat and grain-based products as much as possible, and get gelatin into your life. Is it better to use myo-inositol powder in capsules or in powder form? I really think powder is just a better option. I find that a lot of times capsules have additives that are really not necessary. So I really like it in powder form, but it's kind of up to whatever works best for you. A lot of times capsules, you have to take like 10 capsules to get the right amount. Being vegan while reversing hirsutism, is there a difference between normal diet and this? Yeah, you guys know I'm not a big fan of a vegan diet for a lot of reasons, just because it's really high in anti-nutrients and estrogenic foods. How do you reduce hormonal belly fat? Balance your blood sugar, eat every 2 to 3 hours, make sure you're getting enough sleep, getting to sleep at a decent hour, and getting exercise. Strength training is really, really good for getting rid of hormonal belly fat. Don't exercise too much. PCOS and intermittent fasting, not a good idea. It's just going to cause you to store more fat and lose more muscle. Can you do FN on a budget? Absolutely. There are girls in there that are doing it on a budget. They've really figured it out. They shop sales. They really do it on a budget. So yes, you can absolutely do it on a budget. You just kind of have to pick and choose like your priorities and what's important to you. But I offer you the information, and then you can kind of go from there. Tips on getting better sleep. I'm a horrible insomniac. What are you doing in the evenings? A lot of times we're on screens, we're on our phone, we're on our computer. You got to start winding down for sleep around 9 p.m. and turn the lights off, put your blue, black, and glasses on, take a bath, kind of wind yourself down. That's the biggest thing. Epsom salt baths, magnesium can really help. Rhodiola can be helpful, and so can ashwagandha. All right, guys, so I'm going to go live again in about 10 minutes. Just give me like a 10-minute break to get a snack, and then I'll be going live for another 45 minutes or so to finish answering all these questions. See you in a second.